If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where Harlem flits? Putting on the Ritz.
Welcome back to Rod's Radios. On the bench today is a Philips 18 RB471 tabletop kitchen living room radio, I suppose, from around 1968. Now, the model number refers to an Irish model, I believe, although I couldn't find any technical information on the particular version we see here. However, there's one very similar to it. It's the 22 RB471, which I think was made in Belgium around the same time. The only difference being that the Belgian one had 2 loudspeakers instead of the single one in this one. However, this radio looks like it might have potential. Now, it's extremely grubby, it's filthy. It was given to me by someone who just didn't want it anymore and was about to throw it out. So I decided I'd have a go and see if I could get it going again. It does need a lot of tender loving care in terms of cleaning it up. And in actual fact, on the top of the radio here, it looks like there was water staining. So who knows where this radio was stored for a long time. It's a hybrid radio, which means that it's a mixture of transistorized and valve radios. So it was probably around the era where the last of the valve or tube radios existed. And after that, transistor radios took over. However, I think it could be a very nice little project. I'll just turn the radio around and have a look inside the back of it. It might be a little bit difficult to see here because we're in a dark shed, but I'll just shine some light inside. And I can see that all the bits and pieces are there. I do have the back for it separately here, and the back is in good nick as well. It's made up of 1, 2, 3, 4 valves, and the transistorized FM section is over here on the left, but the rest, the AM section, the IF amplifiers, the audio amplifier is all valves, and a fine big 6-inch speaker over on the right hand side. So I'm going to get this going again. The first thing is to power it up under the varactor to bring the voltage up slowly, because I don't know how long this has been sitting out for or if it's working at all. So let's give it a go. I have the radio switched on now via the dim bulb above it, and I can see there's about 170, 180 volts coming into it. There is some signs of life. Whoa! A very noisy volume control. I'm going to switch it on to full power now. And I can see that the dial bulb has come on, so that's a good sign too, but there is noise coming out of the loudspeaker. Nothing coming on when I tune it up and down the band. We're on VHF at the moment. Whoa! No, something wrong there. So I think at this stage I'll take the chassis out, have a look more closely to see what's going on, what's making this chronic noise. It's certainly something to do with the volume control as well, so I'll start by fixing that. So the next time you see the chassis will be out of the cabinet, cleaned up hopefully, and we'll get to work. With the chassis out of the cabinet sitting on the bench, I'm going to extract the volume control out now to see what's making it so noisy. Here's what a noisy volume control looks like when measured across an ohm meter. So I have it turned right down at the moment, and I start to turn it up and it suddenly jumps up. I'm just moving it smoothly across the range, but you can see the needle flashing back and forwards as it goes towards the top. And now I'm at the end of the control, and as I turn it back down again slowly, it starts to jump around the place again. And that's what contributes to the noisiness as you adjust the volume control when it's in circuit. I've sprayed contact cleaner into the pot, and now when I adjust it, you'll see as I turn it up, it goes up beautifully smoothly. Turn it back down again, and it comes down gradually with no humps and jumps. So this should be a clean volume control when I put it back in. I possibly didn't need to extract it from the radio at all, but there you are. With the volume control back in the chassis, the sound's working perfectly now with no scratchiness or noisiness at all. However, it's extremely intermittent, and each time I would flex the printed circuit panel here, the sound would disappear, and I scratched my head trying to find out what was wrong. It looked like a dry joint somewhere or a broken track, but eventually the sound went completely and no amount of flexing would allow it to come back. So out with a multimeter and start probing around. Probing around the output stage, the AF amplifier, or the sound amplifier, is actually split up into two parts via this output valve, which is a triode section and a pentode section. And at the pentode section on the grid, when you would touch the grid with a screwdriver or whatever, you get a loud hum. So this part of the circuitry was working. However, over on this side, the grid of the triode, there was absolutely nothing getting through. So I started probing around, and on the anode, which should be in the region of, I think it's 87 volts there, it was up around 150, 160, so something wrong there. And that meant that this part of the valve wasn't conducting. Was the valve faulty? I doubted it very much. But when I started probing around the cathode here, the sound bounced back in immediately. And of course it was a dry joint on the cathode. And over on the printed circuit panel, it was actually just here. This is pin 1 of the ECL86 valve, the cathode of the triode section. Beautifully clear dry joint there. However, by flexing the panel, sometimes it was coming back, but eventually not. So a quick solder job, and everything is working beautifully. One of the things I like about old valve radios is the famous magic eye that some of them incorporated. This is the particular one from this radio, and it's a Mullard EM87. However, it was looking a bit tired looking in that first of all, you can see how dark it is, but when it was in circuit, first of all, it looked a bit dim, but secondly, the bars weren't coming across as you would expect during normal service. So I thought it might have had something to do with the circuit. And over in the circuit here, you can see some resistors, some high ohmage resistors, and these are sometimes the cause of the fault here. But it wasn't the case of this radio. It was actually the valve itself. So I've replaced this at great cost with a Russian version. I can't remember the number on it. It's slightly bigger around the circumference than the original one, but it's going to fit in okay because it's stuck into this metal bracket, which should work out. The chassis is now ready to go back into the cabinet. However, the cabinet isn't quite ready for the chassis. The next stage is to attack the cabinet, and it's in a pretty sorry looking state with this severe water damage on the top of it, and the rest of it isn't a lot better. The stain or varnish or whatever was on it has actually gone a yellowy colour in places, so it doesn't look very good. So I think what I'm going to do is to strip it back down, and for that I'm going to use this Nitromor's paint stripper, and that should do the trick. So it's out to the garden, rubber gloves on. La 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 la. We're busy doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time. I have to watch the river to see that it doesn't stop, and stick around the rosebuds so they'll know when to pop. Better keep the crickets cheerful, they're really a solemn bunch. Hustle, bustle, and only an hour for lunch. La 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 la. We're busy doing
nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time.
Day 2, Day 3, Day 4.
Well, after several days anyway, and 4 layers of varnish, the cabinet is looking an awful lot better now. As the speaker grill was missing from this radio, I need to make something to replace it. Radios with this chassis took several appearances as far as the grill is concerned, some wooden slatted, some plastic in form, and some with a fabric appearance. I've decided to use this piece of material. It's actually a table placemat, but suitably loose woven to allow the sound to come through easily. The first part was to make a frame to support the material, and for this purpose I cut out a piece of scrap acrylic and wrapped and glued the material tightly around it. The completed grill was then attached to the cabinet, and it's looking good. And here's the finished article. Let's hear what it sounds like. First of all, medium wave.
Meglepő, nem rendelkezett magyar állampolgársággal. Tehát ő papíron hontalannak számított, ennek a későbbiekben egyébként.
This game, do you think?
Yeah, I think he's a really, really special player. And he's
taking the lead against Bolton, Owen Tollis.
And VHF.
Everyone and figure in the Italian media had all claimed to be in go.
To wear it all really lightly and make it.
So lots of stations on FM or VHF. So I think this project is at an end now at this stage. If you have been, thanks for watching and join me on my next project coming up shortly.